Hi everyone. So I had another opportunity to go out and shoot some fireworks and I got much better results this time. And I'm going to share with you the settings or multiple settings that I used. That said, there's really no one setting that is perfect. You really have to adapt a little bit to the fireworks display. So what I'm going to do is try to help you understand our subject, the fireworks themselves, so that you can get better results for whatever fireworks you'll be shooting. So let's go ahead and get started. So I actually recorded the fireworks while I was there, and this is the first scene that I was at. The next scene will be over the water, but in this scene I have the Mount Vernon mansion and some trees flanking it on either side, and the fireworks are going to come up behind the trees. And then right above me is the timer. So if I start this timer, I want you to notice that right now it says 1 second and 16th. What that's telling you is it's 1 second and 16 frames, and this video is recorded at 24 frames per second. So when we get to the 24th frame, it's going to flip over to 2 seconds, and I'll show you. So there's 23, we go one more frame, we're now at 2 seconds. And then of course if I go to 23, now it's going to flip over to 3 seconds. So just so you understand how the timer works. Now, let's go back to the beginning of this video. And we'll go ahead and start it. Let me freeze it right here. And this kind of firework right here is not good photographically because it lights up everything and it's going to wash out any other fireworks you might have been capturing. I mean, you really can't avoid it if you get these in your fireworks display, but just be aware a lot of shots are going to be lost because these like sparklers start going off and virtually erasing everything that you recorded before when you're trying to take the picture. All right, let's go a little more forward. All right, now if I back up, right now another set of fireworks is about to go off and we're at 2 seconds and 17 frames. So let's forward and see how long it takes for this particular firework to finish. And we'll go, and there it's about done. So you can see it only took 1 second really for those fireworks to finish. And then let's look at one other thing. Let me go back. So let's look at these fireworks here. They're really just little balls of light going out, right? They don't have trails on them where there's a trail of light following behind it. So these kind of fireworks benefit from longer exposures, 2 seconds, 4 seconds, etc. Let's go a little more forward. And like I said, they've already dissipated, but another one has kind of started, but it dissipates very quickly as well. And then if we had left our shutter open for 2 or 3 seconds, anything we captured up to that point, the little balls of light streaking across would have been basically erased by these. So in this scene here, you really 1 or 2 seconds would have been enough if you timed it properly, right? You got to be able to like be spot on with the shutter. But I'm going to talk about a workaround for that as well. All right, let's just go a little further. There's some more balls of light there, some sparklers, some balls of light. So this was kind of early on. And then there's this pause here, right, for them to load up the next scene. So if I go back, 13, so let's say 13 seconds. And so there's about a 2 second delay. So it took about 2 seconds for the next firework to launch before it goes off. And then now we're at 15:09. Let's see how long it takes for this one to finish. There's 16:09. Now it's pretty much expanded, right? And let's go all the way to 2 seconds. It's gone. It's dissipated. So really at 1 second, that one firework is gone. but two more smaller ones are coming up. And those dissipate in 1 second. So really, in less than 2 seconds, we had 3 fireworks go off. And those 3 would have looked good together. But if you left your shutter open for 2 seconds, let's go to 1709. Look what happens. Those sparklers come in, and it would have erased all of the other fireworks that came before it. All right, let's just go a little bit further. Nice, nice. Nice. Okay. This is an example of fireworks that have streaks behind them, right? So again, and then some sparklers in the middle, this is a really cool firework. Now let's go back a little bit. Let's see from the point it started. See, if we started our exposure here with all the sparklers, the entire fireworks after this would have been washed out. So you never want to start your shutter during one of these, okay? So let's go. So really, we wouldn't able to start this shutter until about here, 2603. And then let's just forward. Let's see how long it takes to dissipate. Yeah. Not even really at 1 second, probably about a half a second for that beautiful firework, right? This is really pretty. Not even a half a second for this one to start and dissipate. Let's go a little further. Sparklers, balls of light, sparklers. Okay, and then another pause here. We're at 38. Let's see when it started exactly. Roughly at 38, we'll say. And 1 second later, not even 1 second, in about a half a second, some fireworks went off and already dissipated. And then here you have your blinkies, I'll call them. I don't know how those look photographically, but not that interesting. And I'll show you an example. Okay, here's some beautiful streaks here, right? I mean, they're behind the trees, but let's go back and see when it started. Right at 45. Okay, 4506. Let's go to 4606. And these are almost done after 1 second, right? Because if we left our exposure open for another half a second, just about everything would have been washed out by all this green light and smoke. Right? And then 2 seconds later, it's completely dissipated. But when we're leaving our exposure open for 2 seconds, we're not going to get a very interesting display because of that. All right, so I think that's good enough. Let's go look at some images. All right, so hopefully now you understand some of the challenges and things we have to think about when we're taking pictures of fireworks. And this was a relatively small show that was local in my town. It only lasted like 15 minutes. And when you're in bigger cities where they have larger fireworks displays, because I watched a few online, I noticed that it takes a good 2 to 3 seconds for the fireworks to achieve altitude. And then when they explode and bloom, they can take another second to 3 seconds to fully bloom. But you still have to watch out for those sparklers that explode sometimes, or multiple fireworks going off at the same time, that they don't cancel each other out and wash each other out. But that said, let's go ahead and look at some photos that I took, or we'll look at all the photos I took that night very quickly, and I'll show you what the keepers were and the ones that were not and why. So basically, I broke the photos up into 3 categories. Shots with shutter speeds less than 1 second, shots with shutter speeds at 1 second, and shots with shutter speeds 2 seconds and higher. So let's look at the ones where the shutter speed was at less than 1 second, so half a second, third of a second, etc. And I really didn't have too many keepers here, And I realized that relatively quickly because I took 20 shots, and out of these 20, I really only had 3 keepers. Not very good. So let's look at the ones that I didn't keep, for example. This one, while it's not bad, I didn't frame it properly. This one here, you'll notice that, well, I'll leave the exit date up so you can see it here. You'll notice that there's a lot of sparklers here. So it kind of washed out the beautiful purple lines I should be getting. Now this one came out great. This is one of those fireworks that left, long streaks and trails. And I captured it at the right moment, and I was at a half a second, f4.5, ISO 200. These are not settings I recommend, but I just wanted you to see this one actually came out pretty good. This was one of my keepers because I have a little flag down here. Let's go to the next one. Now this one was a half a second. Same exact exposure, right? f4.5, ISO 200. But look how washed out everything is. This is when everything went off at the same time and overexposed the scene. So this one obviously, was not a keeper. This one here was just, my timing was off, right? And it's 1/3 of a second, so the fireworks didn't have a chance to bloom or spread out. And one significant thing you'll notice is you see the dots of light, or these really short streaks. These should be nice long streaks. If this was like a 1 or 2 second exposure, those streaks would have been much longer all the way across the image and would have made a much more fascinating image. This one's okay. The timing wasn't bad. You can see down here, one is about to go off. This one went off already and left some nice streaks. But then we have these just balls of light up here. And that's the consistent problem I ran into, was when the shutter speed, like this is 1/3 of a second, is too short. When you get just these little balls of light, like I showed you in the video, you're basically freezing the image, and they don't have a chance to really spread out and create a dramatic firework effect. All right, let's go to the ones that are exactly 1 second. Now, in this one, I took 18 images, and out of these 18, I got 12 keepers. And I was shooting between f8 and f11, but let's go ahead and look at a couple here. This one, not bad. This is a 1 second at f8 and ISO 200, and we got pretty good streaks. I think, honestly, these fireworks don't get much bigger, even if I left the shutter open another second. I risk another set of fireworks coming in and washing this out. So 1 second, I think, was the perfect exposure for this. This is another 1 second exposure, and I thought this captured nicely. Here's a 1 second, and again, these are fireworks that leave nice streaks, and we got separate colors too on the tips. This one, my timing was off. Yeah, my timing was off here, although I could probably recover this. But the reason this is not a keeper is because I must have bumped my tripod, because you can see all these wiggly lines, right? So I didn't keep that one. But this one is really nice. And I think if I post-process this a little bit, this one will be great. And so on. This was not a keeper because I caught this one at the end when it was just fizzling away. Yeah, this one's okay. So I still have a lot of processing to do. This one I processed a little bit. It came out really nice, I think. We had nice streaks. We had balls of light. But the balls of light, I at 1 second had just enough time to leave some nice streaks around the main fireworks. And so on and so on. Some of these, were just gorgeous, I thought. And again, we're 1 second, f11, ISO 200. Now let's go to the ones that are over 2 seconds. So you can see here, you know, I'm all over the place. This is when I was experimenting. So I took 33 shots, and out of these 33, I got 14 keepers, so less than half, right? Some of that was because of timing, but there, you know, being at 2 seconds, F8, F11, etc., there's a problem that comes in. Now, let's look at the ones I didn't keep. Let me go down a little bit. Here's a 5.9 second exposure. I was probably using live time or live bulb or something, but the problem I run into, and again, we're at F11 ISO 200, it got overexposed and I lost all the color. And this was a very common problem when I left the shutter open too long, was it would overexpose and or it'd look a little washed out because you know, when there should be a lot of color because it's overexposed. But if it's overexposed to the point that, you know, things are just blown out, like this one is at ISO 100, 7.6 seconds. And you can see there's a lot of blown out highlights and the colors are washed out. And the same thing here, 12 seconds. So I didn't get a lot of color here, or here, or here. And then of course, these are totally blown out. This is only a 6 second exposure and it's just blown out. So while I did get some keepers, let's look at the keepers. Like this one, it's blown out, but I thought it was really cool right in here. Now this one didn't get blown out, so these fireworks weren't quite as bright. Either I caught it towards the tail end of the bloom, and also this is a pretty short exposure, 4 seconds, F8 ISO 200. These fireworks are kind of cool, but not very dramatic. This one is probably the best one at 6 seconds ISO 200. These red lines here were actually, these are not trails. This is an example of the fireworks that just has balls of light going out. But because I left the exposure open for 6 seconds, it left these really nice light trails in the frame. And then of course these just kind of went off in the center. And then we have some blue balls here that, did I just say blue balls? Anyhow, we have these blue streaks here that were probably little balls of light originally. So this is kind of the exception across most of the images that I took when I was using longer exposures. But like this one is an example of this was probably one of the larger fireworks that, you know, I was able to leave the shutter open for 7 seconds and the multiple fireworks didn't wash each other out. But overall, you'll notice, if we look at the ones I didn't keep, it's mostly because the colors are very flat or they're blown out, etc. So I don't recommend long exposures like 6 seconds at ISO 200 f11. So hopefully those images reinforce what we talked about in the video of the fireworks, about some of the challenges we run into, the different kinds of fireworks you're going to get taking pictures of, and how they're going to look at different exposures. Now let's go into the camera and look at some settings, and I'm going to give you a few tips on how to get started so that you can have a successful night and more keepers when you take fireworks pictures. So for gear, it's very, very simple. You know, any camera that has a full manual mode and then a zoom lens, preferably the kit lens that came with the camera. Like on mine, I have the EM10 Mark II, but this is the 14 to 42 kit lens. Some cameras have the 18 to 55 or maybe a 24 to 100 like on a typical full frame camera. But essentially you need a very wide field of view and then the ability to zoom in when you need to, because you may not know exactly the field of view or where you'll be standing when you're taking pictures of the fireworks. So you need to be able to adjust in the field. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be a super fast lens because we're shooting at like f11 anyway. And then one more essential piece is a tripod, not the little tabletop one that I have here, but full-on tripod that's relatively sturdy because you will be doing long exposures. And if you can, use a remote shutter or a cable release so that when you want to take the picture, you don't have to touch the camera. You could also do it via Wi-Fi app, but I don't recommend that because a lot of times there's a little bit of a lag or delay. And as you know, or as we saw, the fireworks can be very, very fast, and you're going to miss a lot of shots that way. And then I'm going to show you one additional feature with the intervalometer, and that's how I shoot fireworks, or how I'm going to shoot the fireworks from now on. All right, let's go ahead and set up the camera, and I'm going to assume you got to the event early, so you have time to set up all the settings we're going to talk about. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset the camera so that we're all on the same page. And then I'm going to rotate the mode dial and put the camera into manual mode so I can control the ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And let's go ahead and change our shutter speed to 1 second because those are the best results, I think, for the fireworks display that I did that night. And then I'm going to rotate the front dial, and I'm going to change my aperture to f11. And we can ignore the -2.3 EV that's being displayed now because we're exposing for fireworks and not for the scene. Now let's just double check our ISO. I recommend start at ISO 200. And then let's change our white balance to sunny so that we get a consistent color from shot to shot. Because with the multiple color fireworks, in auto white balance, it's possible that you're going to be getting different shades of fireworks other than what they really are. All right, now, another thing you can do if you're going to be shooting JPEG, just shoot in Vivid, just to get a little extra color. And then I'm going to change my focus point to just roughly top center right there, just for the first shot, and I'll get into that in a second. And also, I always recommend shooting RAW plus JPEG, but we'll do large fine plus RAW. And now let's go into the menu. And I'm going to go down to the, let's see, color and white balance and grading. And I'm just going to change all of these to super fine. Large super fine. That way we get the maximum quality. Because now if we go back to the super control panel, you'll notice that it says LSF, not just LF. For people that just want to shoot JPEG. If you're shooting RAW, of course, that will not make any difference. And then finally, we'll go into the menu, and we're going to set up, turn off that. We're going to set up our intervalometer. So if your camera has an intervalometer built in, you can use, you may want to use it. I'm going to use it in this example. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to go over to the right, and I'm going to change the number of frames to the maximum 999. I'm going to wait 2 seconds for the first shot, and then 1 second in between. And if you have it, I'm going to turn on time lapse, and we're going to do 4K 5 frames per second. Just for fun. It's not necessary. You can turn time lapse off if you're not going to use it. But I'm going to turn it on. And then one last thing is down here, rec view. Rec view should be turned off. I have to disconnect the HDMI cable for a second to do that. So I'm going to turn the rec view off, like so. And then another thing we need to turn off actually is in the exposure menu. I'm going to turn noise reduction off as well. And noise filter on standard is fine. Everything else is fine. Okay, so you've put all those settings in. You have your camera mounted on the tripod. Now just kind of zoom in and out and frame the scene the way you think you'll need to frame it. And I'm just doing it virtually here using my monitor. And I think that looks good there. And now, some people say you should try to set your lens to infinity focus. And personally, I have trouble doing that, especially with these electronic lenses. So what I recommend you do is actually wait for the fireworks to start, half press the shutter button to lock focus on the fireworks, and then change your camera to manual focus. So let me demonstrate what I mean, because once you do that, you don't have to touch the focus anymore from there. So I'm going to go ahead and start the fireworks here virtually. And then I'm going to set my focus point over here. And I've only half pressed the shutter button, and I acquired focus on the fireworks. Now I'll just go into the super control panel and change my focus back to manual. And I'm all set. And now the focus is locked and properly focused on the fireworks. Because sometimes, you know, people say focus to infinity, but then your fireworks may still be blurry. So I found this to be a better way. And now what you do is you just wait for a time when there's the fireworks sort of end. Okay, now. And right there. And right there. And it takes a little bit of luck, right? Right there. And right there. There. All right. Let's see how I did. So if I go back and I push play, so there's some sparklers. Yeah, that came out pretty cool. Ooh, that one came out nice. And that one's not bad. Not bad at all. And that one's not bad. Ooh, that's a miss. Oh, that one came out nice. And those are a couple of misses, and that one came out pretty good. And I think that's when I was acquiring focus. Yeah. All right. So I was just using my finger to push the shutter button while it was on the tripod. And if you can, it's probably better to use a remote shutter or a cable release. But as you saw, you know, you have to have a little bit of luck and good timing. And what's going to help you is if you practice a little before you go out. So just do what I did here. Pull up a video on YouTube of any fireworks display, hopefully something similar, maybe even in your own town or city. And just point your camera at the screen and practice your timing before you go out with all the settings that I did here. So do exactly the same thing, right? Set up all the settings. When the fireworks start, acquire focus, change the manual focus, and then start pushing the shutter button and trying to time it. Now, if you remember, I set up the intervalometer in my camera. And if you have an intervalometer, this makes fireworks shooting a lot easier, in my opinion. And this is what I'm going to do when I go out this weekend, is after you acquire focus, you want to do the same things, right? You want to acquire focus automatically, then switch the camera to manual focus, and then you want to go into the camera and turn on the intervalometer. So let's do that. All right, so we've already acquired focus. The camera is now in manual focus, so the focus doesn't change. Let's go into the menu, and it's in shooting menu 1. Go into the intervalometer, go down here, go over to the right, Go down here, go over to the right and just double check the settings. 999 frames, 2 seconds to start, and 1 second in between. And that all looks good. So I'm going to click OK, and click OK one more time, and then tap the shutter button. And you'll look at the top of the screen next to the smiley face. You'll see that it says 999. So that's telling me that the intervalometer is on and ready to start shooting. So the fireworks are already ongoing. So let's go ahead and start this. And I'm going to start the camera intervalometer. Look, it already got one there. And I can let this go on forever. All right, now when the fireworks are over, all you need to do is push the menu button. I just repeatedly push the menu button until I see it stop. And it looks like it's about to stop. Yeah, so we're good. All right, let's take a quick look at the images. There's the time-lapse movie it made. It's going to be very fast. But that's cool. And then some of the images, that's okay. That's a miss. That one's nice. Nice. Nice again. Nice. Kind of a miss. A miss. Not bad. That'll be good with a little processing. Oh, I like that. Just when the sparklers started or ended. And that's pretty cool. And that's a miss. Not bad. Oh, I like that one. So that was just a very quick sample of some images, and some of them came out pretty nice. And it really took no work at all other than running the intervalometer. So you won't need to have a remote cable release or remote shutter wireless. You just let the camera do all the work. So I think it's going to make it a lot easier. And I'm just using these basic settings. So as you saw, you just repeatedly hit the menu button until the camera stops taking pictures. And I recommend you stop it after every couple of minutes and check the shots and make sure you acquired focus and that it's framed the way that you want. Because sometimes the images, the fireworks are shooting higher than you thought. You need to recompose. Maybe the scene's a little wider. But in any case, if you need to recompose, you know, just simply zoom in or out, put the camera back in the autofocus, acquire focus on one of the fireworks, put the camera back in the manual focus, turn on the intervalometer, and start taking pictures again. All right, so hopefully you understand a little better now how to take fireworks pictures and why the settings can be very different from what I did here. Hopefully not too different. Because when I went online and looked at Flickr and watched these videos, I mean, people were all over the place with their settings. F8, F16, F11, 2 seconds, 8 seconds, etc. And it was very confusing. So that's why I felt it was important to show you in a video of fireworks and explain the different kind of fireworks, you know, understand the subject, right? So that you can adjust your settings to get the kind of images you want to get. Well, I hope you liked this video. If so, consider subscribing to the channel, hit the like button, or maybe make a small donation, buy me a coffee. But either way, I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.